What's up, guys? Welcome to the Happy Hans podcast. Today we're going to be talking about Night of the Living Dead in response to kind of what's going on today, both with the Black Lives Matter movement and the coronavirus that's going on. If you follow our Twitter and Instagram pages, we will be posting about said organizations and places that you could donate and petitions that you could sign. I am Elias, and I'm joined by my co-host.
How's it going, guys? Welcome back. Like Elias said, we're going to be tackling George A. Romero's 1968 classic. It's going to be a good time, and it definitely addresses a lot of what's happening in our society at the moment. It's going to hit kind of hard, but it's an amazing movie, that's for sure.
Co-host Angel, by the way. This man forgot. All right. Off to a great start.
Shit.
But anyways, we're going to start by talking about like kind of what this movie is to us and our early memories of this movie. This won't really be the case with all of the media we kind of talk about here, but in this case, we did know about this movie before recording this. So I initially found out about George A. Romero and his movies like high school, specifically when I watched the new Dawn of the Dead. You know how there was a remake?
Oh, yeah.
But I watched it and then I found out it was like a remake. Then I remember looking up the movies and like he had his whole like trilogy, Night, Dawn, then Day of the Dead.
Day
right?
of the Dead, yeah.
That was interesting. That's kind of like when I learned about like those movies and their existence. I didn't watch Night of the Living Dead until I was an undergrad, probably like 2013, maybe 14. I had a projector. It would like take up most of our wall, and we would just watch old, and it would like kind of get us in the mood to watch really old movies back in the day. We would throw on all these old like horror movies and all this other random shit on our fucking projector. And one day I said fuck it and watched Night of the Living Dead, and I remember having like a very positive response to it when I watched it back then. How about you?
I would say I experienced this movie earlier, like growing up. I remember vividly, like during October time, we were like glued to the TV when it came to the Sci-Fi Channel, and Night of the Living Dead would be playing on the Sci-Fi Channel. It's like, what is this? I was blown away as a kid. I was pretty terrified of it. Yeah, we'll get into the makeup and everything because it's a little cheesy now, but some of the dialogue in the movie, it definitely stuck with me as a kid. Like, it's a lot scarier to think about what is happening than actually seeing what was happening. So that's what I remember. Shout out to Sci-Fi Channel because they brought a lot of the horror movies to me as a kid.
Yeah, bro. Like even when we're watching this movie, we'll get more into it later. But like a lot of the visuals are just really striking in a way that's just like still kind of scary compared to even today's standard.
Exactly.
Yeah, there's some moments, and we'll get to it where we talk about those moments.
Yeah, so obviously before we begin, just wanted to give one last warning that there will be spoilers ahead. So we're going ahead and just giving you guys a quick break. If you want to stop the podcast here, watch the movie, then return so you can fully enjoy our half-witted commentary. If you've already seen the movie and just want us to continue, maybe you should arm yourself with some snacks because we are going to be talking about the undead for quite a bit. That being said, take it away, Elias.
We're gonna start with the beginning of the movie. It's like an open shot of a car kind of driving down a road, and this ominous music was playing. I watched this on YouTube, and then they subtitled the music for some reason. I'm not really sure
really?
why they would do that. I've seen it happen sometimes, but it would just be like dramatic music plays, dramatic music continues, and dramatic like music ...
What? I did not see that. Okay.
Yeah, it was cool. Watching it, I'm like, damn, this is like the 30th like horror movie that has this like drive down credits. Like The Shining did it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to wonder how popular this was and if this was one of the first horror movies
To
to be
bring
doing
out
that.
that
I'm not.
credit scene. Yeah, I wonder about that. It works though, because it's like with the music and everything, it's building up the tension.
Next note I have written down is that Barbara says some dumb shit about time change should be summer. um, yeah,
To
I
have
don't
more
really remember.
sunlight.
I watched this morning. I did my second rewatch. I did a first rewatch, but my notes were lost, so I rewatched it again. Barbara, I'm gonna preface this with Barbara's the most annoying fucking character. It's like,
She is.
bro, just her existence is hard to deal with. Just the fact that she is real in this world just upsets me. But anyways, she said some dumb shit about the time change should be summer. She's talking to her brother Johnny. Both her and Johnny are driving to give her dead father. Who the fuck was dead? Who?
It was their father. So they're headed up to the Evans City Cemetery to drop off a new wreath for their father's grave. Yeah. And then Johnny straight off the bat, he's like, why the hell are we even going here? We spend money every single time just on these wreaths just for them to just toss them out.
She and Johnny start to have this conversation, and Johnny's looking at Barbara like, what the fuck is this dumb bitch talking about when she says the time change should be in the summer? Because why was this, like, someone sat down and written this dialogue? I know it's something small, but it's just so weird.
It's something that's
But anyways, we'll move on for the fucking time change. They start talking about how they drove for 3 hours and 200 miles to a graveyard that apparently they used to hang out at as children.
that was weird.
There's lots of questionable. There's a lot that happens this first scene only because of how strange this conversation was. It's like sometimes you watch movies and you see the dialogue and it's like these people have never had like interactions with people.
They never had a full-on conversation with an actual adult. It's just like, let me spout off some nonsense. All right.
Yeah, and then Barbara's not the only stupid one in this situation. Johnny turns around and says, "Where the fuck is my candy?" And Barbara doesn't really give him an answer.
No, not at all. She's like...
yeah, so they kind of move past the candy, but the candy becomes important for whatever reason later on. So we'll move past that. Johnny turns off the radio after the radio starts to tell him about the epidemic that's happening.
Right, of course they ignore the freaking radio once they're like, oh, sorry, we're back from the interruption. We're going to explain what happened. And he's like, oh, whatever. There's no sense in listening to this any farther. Like,
yeah, it's always a red flag when something piques the interest of the listener, but the characters on screen are like, this is boring, and then they just move on. Like, he's not just gonna walk up to a grave and put a wreath on it. But whatever.
So the one thing, Johnny's constantly complaining about going to the cemetery just to set up the wreath, and then at one point he realizes that Barbara's scared to be there, and that kind of kicks into the next important scene, which is the whole "they're coming to get you, Barbara" scene, because he brings back up that memory of them, for whatever reason, being kids running around in a cemetery, you know, just fucking weird ass shit.
Yeah, I'll preface this with some notes I have too. They talk about church. Johnny doesn't believe in church apparently, and likes to command other people how they should practice their religion, which is not okay. There's a lot of thunder and lightning, but the sky is clear, and the thunder and lightning have nothing to do with the undead.
It never rains either.
Yeah, strange. So, apparently Johnny was an asshole and always disrespected the graveyard. Because right before he goes like, "They're coming to get you, Barbara," he's like, "Oh, Barbara, remember when I used to scare you when we were little?" And it's...
Do you feel like that was like God's intervention, like coming down?
I think these two characters are just bad. I think it's a very... Like, "I'm coming to get you, Barbara" is an iconic scene, and I love that scene, but when you watch it with, like, fresh ears and eyes, it's just, man, what was going on?
It's chaotic.
So this zombie, after he does that, he's pointing at this guy that's walking by, who of course is going to be the zombie. He runs away from her. She doesn't have shoes.
You could see a tear in his freaking suit, like, in the background, and they don't even think any of it.
Yeah. So, side note, the zombie looks like Peter Capaldi from Doctor Who.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he slightly looks like Peter Capaldi,
Gotcha.
but we don't have to get too
To
past into that.
get
We'll mention him as Peter Capaldi because he will be important later. He runs away. Barbara, who doesn't have shoes, don't know why. She walks directly into the zombie, into Peter Capaldi, instead of walking around him.
right. Like,
Yeah,
why does
that.
she? She's not even like, oh, let me go around you. She's like, I'm just gonna walk right through you, and then apologize after the fact. Although I do have to mention, this scene becomes important for like women's fears in a sense. I've seen it
Mhm.
used in a movie that came out recently, Haunt. I won't get into that too much, but the way they use it was like, this is the women's fears of constantly fearing men attacking them, groping them, that like constant fear that you're being stalked, basically.
Yeah, because later on, Barbara does reference this event that happens as a guy tearing at her.
Yeah.
And there's kind of like some PTSD sort of behaviors that Barbara does showcase later on. So I do kind of see where that stems from this scene.
So Johnny sees Barbara getting attacked. He runs back over, trying to save Barbara, and gets thrown into a tombstone and killed. Like,
Yeah.
instantly.
All I have is they struggle and wrestle, then he's dead. So Peter Capaldi, he gets up, he's walking really fast towards Barbara. As she gets into the car, she realizes she doesn't have the key, I assume.
Yeah, yeah.
So she has to like pull the brakes or something. But while this is happening, Peter Capaldi's smashing the window, and as he's smashing the window, Barbara's just kind of looking at him. Like Barbara doesn't choose to react until the window is broken, which is kind of a little backwards. But
Yeah, and
you know, older movies just have a interesting way of showcasing this stuff.
and I understand like there wasn't really any movies to set up any of the rules. This is literally the movie to do all that. But like this ghoul basically, he picks up a rock to smash this window. So this shows that they are capable of some thought in a sense, which is interesting for zombies.
So car rolls down the hill, crashes into a tree, of course. Barbara gets out of the car and runs with the least amount of grace I've ever seen a lead woman in a horror movie run.
She stumbles basically.
When she runs, she like tilts her whole body.
Like
So like her torso is tilting with every step. So I was expecting her to fall and trip because it's been so long since I've seen the movie, but she didn't. But anyways, this scene kind of continues, and we get like some actually amazing shots of her like running away, and like the music, the way everything just kind of comes together with these scenes and these cuts and these edits are just so good. The way she hides around the house that she eventually finds is just really well done.
Yeah, when she's like peeking around the corner, just trying to find like a way inside the house is pretty cool. You see like the terror in her eyes, and she's constantly looking back, and you see the zombie like still stumbling out. It's definitely imagery that sticks with you.
Yeah, it's forgivable. About the stuff that happens in the midst of it is forgivable just because the scene is done so well.
Mm-hmm.
Like she's basically hiding in plain sight, kind of posing for pictures as she's like running, and like she peeks over the house, and the zombie's still walking towards her, like she didn't make any progress, which is the funniest part of all this. But she goes into the house, and then once she's in the house, there's taxidermy, and this is what really gets her for some reason.
Yeah, that was such a weird scene. Well, like, so she goes in, she immediately arms herself. Like, she doesn't even like call out to the owners of the house, like, "Hey, help me out." She just immediately like goes in, sees the taxidermy, runs over, grabs a knife, and is like, "I'm gonna defend myself against anybody I see."
Yeah,
Just
Barbara's
to barge in
behavior
like that.
this whole movie is questionable. Like I understand the subtext a lot of this has, but it's still like very interesting to have. Barbara goes up the stairs and then she sees this dead person. I think the makeup here is spectacular because it scared the fuck out of me.
Yeah,
This is a movie for the 60s.
that quick cut to the face, And then the cut back to Barbara realizing like, oh shit, this is a corpse up here. Like that was cool.
Yeah, that was a great scene. Next note I have written down is the best character in the movie shows up and locks the door. I never caught his name. They don't even call him by his name. I think
It's
like once or twice.
it's Ben.
Ben.
Yeah.
Alright.
So
Ben walks in.
Dwayne Jones plays Ben, and the way that they introduce him, just like flash of light, because she sees the corpse upstairs and she basically forgets about the zombies that were chasing her outside. So she decides to just run outside. The flash from the truck lights come on, and then you immediately get a cut of Dwayne Jones popping into the scene, and she honestly a pretty racist scene because she recoils in terror at him just standing there. Like he's not a ghoul or anything. He's just like I'm trying to find somewhere safe, and she sees him and is like, and
Yeah, I think most of these characters have like racial undertones
yeah.
towards him. It's hard to forgive a lot of these characters because they're so demeaning towards anything he has to say or do.
So yeah, he quickly like gets her, brings her inside, locks the door, and then from the get-go, he immediately starts planning the best course of action. He starts questioning her like, truck's out of gas, the pump out there is locked, where's the key? Like we need to unlock this pump, refuel the truck, we need to escape. Like he's constantly taking charge of his fate. He's a survivor, a true survivor.
I found the note that I was going to look. You explained it much better than what I had
Oh,
written
sorry.
down, which was Barbara is completely useless while my man's is trying to get things done.
That's a perfect explanation as well.
But yeah, Barbara is seemingly just not useful. Even as existing just seemed like a hard job for her.
Right? Ben later, he protects the truck from two zombies because he sees them like smashing in the lights. So he runs out there and starts beating down these zombies. As Barbara is just sitting there, like coming to grips with what's happening, fighting her sanity, basically. You see a zombie start creeping up behind her. So after he's done taking out these two zombies, he later has to come back inside and protect her from this other zombie. Like she literally does nothing.
Yeah, it's very interesting. After a little bit, I think there was a lot of zombies in the beginning of this sequence of Ben kind of coming into play.
Mm-hmm.
There's a shot of just two zombies outside now, and I could have swore there were more of them right before that. Barbara has a total mental breakdown. This is when Barbara goes from useless to completely, really having a hard time trying to stand this character. She was throwing microaggressions at my boy Ben. There's lots of fighting that happens during the scene. I don't have a shot for shot of what happened.
Are you talking about like him fighting off the zombies
It's
or
Ben.
between?
Yeah, Ben goes outside and fights
yeah.
zombies.
So what I thought was super interesting about this actually is zombie that he killed that was gonna attack Barbara. He drags it away and sets it on fire, literally right outside the steps of the house.
Yeah. There's a lot of that later on too.
And it basically kind of brings in the fact, like Frankenstein, like fearing fire trope. Because I mean, I think of Frankenstein, he is a zombie. So for them to use that as well for George Romero's zombies is a cool tie-in as well.
The zombie sound effects reminds me of this video game called Deadly Premonition. It's just like this low res, like, oh, and it's honestly amazing. That was just like a little thing for people who know Deadly Premonition. Then, I don't know what this is in context to, but Ben tells Barbara, don't look at it. This was the point where I was like, she really just can't do anything. Like, to the point where Ben is just saying, like, don't even look at it.
So in that scene, like, I don't know if you felt this, but like the look in her eyes, she almost looks at the zombie as if it was a victim of Ben's attack. Like if Ben was the aggressor. Like she's looking at it like, oh, you poor thing, like, can I help you or whatever? I don't know. That was just the feeling that I got.
I could see it that way. It did look very dead-faced to me. If I were to look this in a different lens, I could see myself looking at it that way. Ben basically tells Barbara to get her shit together and do something like pick out the giant nails so he can start boarding up the walls. He's really starting to get frustrated with her at this point. She is really starting to kind of lose her touch with reality. And there's this really cool shot of her looking through a music box or at a music box. I liked it enough to write it down. She's kind of looking through it. It's like a music box that kind of like opens sideways or something, and you just see her
Yeah.
eyes or her face through it. It was just a really cool framing of her face.
It reminded me of like a haunted house movie, basically. Like you always gotta have like some music, creepy, decrepit music box just sitting somewhere. But it was well done for them to keep it in. And then, like you said, Ben's telling Barbara like he almost basically snaps at her, but he's very insightful. So he's like, "All right, I know you're freaking out, but we literally need to work together to survive. So go find me wood, find me the biggest nails that you can find." And then she goes to the fireplace and literally picks up like four of the tiniest
I have it
pieces
written
of
down.
wood.
She picks up 3 of the smallest pieces of wood that, bro, I literally cannot stand this character in any sense. Like, there can be undertones, there could be this, but it is so poorly done for
Right?
her.
Oh
And
my
and you
god.
spend so much screen time in such a good movie with her. It sucks, bro. It sucks so much.
Also,
But anyways,
what's her deal? So like when she has the knife and Ben first comes in, she like places the knife on top of the fridge. Then with the wood again, she places it back up on top of the fridge. That's her like safe place.
yeah, she would go kind of to like the corner of where he's like grabbing the nails and stuff and just kind of like caress the knife over and over again.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that meant or who told her to do that or if the actress did it herself. It was just weird. I do notice that the nails were holding up a door, like cuz he takes the door out and he boards up the main door with it, and it's kind of crazy. I don't know if like that's true or if you can actually do that or if they like did some movie magic with it, but
Yeah, this man
I was
was ripping
impressed.
down like full on doors, placing them in front of windows and everything. Like he was super resourceful, but true. Like, can you actually physically do that? I don't know.
Then we get to the part where Ben starts telling a story about like what happened to him. I don't have all the details, but basically what you kind of get out of this story is that fire scares the zombies and how he got there. And he was either riding with somebody, right, in a truck.
He was at a diner.
Oh, he was at the diner.
Yeah,
Okay.
I can't remember the name of the diner, but he saw everything happening. He saw the truck catch fire, and that's when he knew that the zombies were like afraid of it and like recoiling from the flames. And he ran, got into the truck. So the way he's explaining this part is done so beautifully tragic in the sense where he says they just stood there staring at me. I just wanted to crush them. And when he explains driving through them, he's like they scattered through the air like bugs. This is very terrifying for him to like say these things. Like you feel the rage that he has for like these things attacking the people inside the diner. He couldn't hear the screams anymore, and then he knew like for his own survival he had to do the unthinkable. He had to mow them down.
Yeah, the story that he's telling takes like a tonal shift as soon as he's like, I turned around and the diner's now overrun by zombies. Like
Yeah.
everybody in there gone. Like there's no taking them back. It's nothing, you know. So yeah, that I thought that was like a really powerful scene, a really like well delivered. Whilst this is happening, we have shots of Barbara not acknowledging the tragic events that happened to him because like a typical white woman, she's self-involved and in her own world. Uh, she doesn't take the time, and then in response, she does not even acknowledge his story or say like, "I'm sorry to hear that" or whatever.
Right?
Right? She instead starts talking about herself, and she says, "Oh, my brother died." Right? Which is tragic, you know. Like we would all be sad about our brother if he were to pass. But come on, like you know that this dude is just as alone as you are. He's probably worried about his loved ones, his family. it just sets this tone of like undermining this man because he's a person of color is just all over this movie.
Yeah, it is.
And it's really hard to watch at times, but anyways, when she's talking about her brother, the thing she chooses to fucking talk about, and you remember when I talked about this earlier in this fucking podcast, was the fucking candy in the back of the car. She chooses to mention the fucking candy, and I just, oh my god.
Now she brings it up, even though back then Johnny was trying to ask for it, and she just like blows him completely off. That's the one detail that she holds, like out of all this.
I don't know, man. She says it's hot. This is just me nitpicking now, like everything she does. She says it's hot. She unbuttons like 2 buttons from her jacket instead of taking her jacket off.
And then, well, even though she does that, this is when she gets into the better part of her story, explaining what the zombie was doing when it attacked her. Like, it ripped at me, it teared at me. But even while she's saying this, like, she's pulling the jacket closed again. She just tried to take it off, and now she's, like, covering herself back up. I don't know.
Yeah, it's like a weird scene. Commit to one thing if we're gonna do it, right? If we really wanted to talk about how like the zombie teared at her, and we're gonna symbolize that with how a woman are assaulted and groped on the daily, right? We don't want to do it in this matter where you shut down a person of color, followed by just making comments like it's hot, and then just kind of, whatever. She eventually starts getting mad at Ben because Ben says, hey, he's probably dead. We should kind of like make the best of what we have. We should kind of move on and do what we need to do. So she slaps the shit out of him, and then Ben isn't having it, so he fucking close fists her.
I was gonna say
knocks her the fuck out.
That was definitely closed fists, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the sound effects are different too. It's like a psh when she hits him, and then it's like a boom like when he drops her.
Okay.
Yeah,
that
very very interesting choice of actions to take. I can't help but notice a lot of older movies do this as well. But we'll kind of go past this and take what's more positive in this movie.
Yeah.
A lot of this interaction just didn't need to happen the way it did, I feel.
I could see like viewers, especially back in the day, for that. They're like, oh god, what's gonna happen? But I mean,
yeah, it seemed like tension just to have tension.
Yeah. Unnecessary tension.
My man uses a bunch of lighter fuel. I mean, he burns a piece of the couch, then potentially lights the grass and house that he's staying at on fire. But he throws the couch at the zombies, and this is like when I kind of said the zombies here, kind of their movements and stuff are more human-like and like more thinking.
Yeah, the way they like put their
dead
hands in front of their face and like back up and everything. Yeah, there's definitely thought process to everything that they're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting because this is like one of the original zombies, right? Like this is the blueprint, like zombie, like, but there have been undead movies before this.
Mm-hmm.
But it is interesting to see.
And then he returns back inside the house. The next scene that plays out is very, very real when he finds the radio and he turns on the news, and it's just shots of him going around and barricading the house because it ties into our quarantine right now. And literally us hearing everything on the news, everything that's happening, the world's fighting oppression all around us, while some of us are keeping away from being potentially infected from this virus that's going on. So it played out very real and very terrifying for me.
Yeah, I enjoyed the scene a lot too. I do have kind of my own issues with it. I'll talk about what I like about first.
Mm-hmm.
What I like first. I do like that he like went for a smoke right after he was finished boarding shit up. He just kind of needed a break, just like a breather from like, holy, all these people died. I'm with this woman who like
doesn't give
unhinged.
a shit about me.
Yeah, I need to find like something to kind of like fix this terrible situation I'm in. Which is kind of like relatable in the smaller sense with us, right? Like what we were going through. I think people are like already starting to go out, but we'll probably be back inside again soon if the coronavirus kind of peaks up again.
Yeah.
that happens. And my negative about these scenes, especially the ones with the radios and the TV, it does seem like very much like what life is now, which is good. That's another good part. I mean, but there's so much dialogue, and that's what happens with a lot of these older movies. I feel like there's a lot of dead air because there's not a lot of action moving things forward. It's a lot of dialogue driven things. A lot of dialogue happening all the time. Like, we're just going to stand around in this room and talk for 10 minutes, and then we're going to stand out around in another room and talk for 10 minutes. Right?
Yeah. It kind of plays as like an informing the audience in a way to what we're going to be seeing later as well, kind of building up like, hey, this is happening all over the world. This isn't just like an isolated incident. And at that point, because what it's on the radio, they haven't explained yet that they're eating flesh and everything. They're just saying like, all these kill happy murders happening everywhere, like stay inside, this and that.
Yeah, so like my comment was more towards I wish I had written like a phrase that they had said or something. But if you watch a more modern movie or more modern horror movie, this information will be come across to the audience within like 3 minutes, right? 3 minutes is like a lot on like the higher end too. This scene is like 5 minutes of the radio or so, or not, maybe not this scene, but I know later ones are or have been. I timed one of them.
Oh, you did time one?
I think I did. I remember thinking it in my head. Yeah, it's like a lot of like, what do you think, Mr. Scientist? And the scientist is gonna be like, I don't know, but he's gonna take like a minute to say I don't know. You know, like it's weird. It's a thing with older movies. I love a lot of older movies, but this is always my complaint when I watch these or recommend these movies to somebody that doesn't watch these movies as often.
It's definitely true, especially for like when we get to the TV scene later on. It's just a lot of standing around saying the same thing over and over again.
So, Ben, he finds a gun in the closet after like his whole needing to take a break from reality. He finds shoes for Barbara because I mentioned earlier she doesn't have shoes. Don't know why. She's not very happy that he's trying to help her out even with the lightest gestures. So he goes upstairs for her and like moves the body away for her. Barbara hears that people are being eaten on the radio.
Oh, sorry, super quick.
Yeah.
So you know how they had that beautiful makeup when we first saw the corpse?
Yes.
When Ben's pulling the body away, you can get a clear shot of the woman's face, and it's completely fine. It's completely fine. There's nothing there. So I thought that was pretty funny.
It's like one of those few older things that I'll be like, all right, I'll let that one go. You can't just keep the makeup because it clearly wasn't like a person when you first see it.
I just thought like at least make it look bloody or whatever, but it was like clean face, just like, oh, woman sleeping, that's fine.
Yeah, it just looked like someone that was asleep.
And then this super cool quick cut scene plays out where you hear this playing in the background, you hear the cellar door begin to creak open, and then a hand emerges around the corner. And then this is where the survivors in the cellar burst out.
I thought that scene was cool too. Barbara just kind of lets them in when the hand comes out and stuff. She doesn't really do anything about it. She doesn't scream until he's like right in front of her too. I did notice that this guy looked like one of the dudes from Anchorman. I found out his name, David Kochner.
Oh yeah. He was the sports announcer.
Yes, he looks exactly like him. It's like you teleported this man back in the day.
Oh, did you know? So his name is Harry. Hold on, I got his name. Carl Hardman. He's one of the producers of the film, and
oh, interesting.
Yeah, so him and then also the woman that plays his wife, Helen. They're both producers of the movie. So I know we should have mentioned this a little earlier, but this movie was pretty low budget. It was like $114,000, which equates to about $460,000 in 2020 due to inflation. So it was pretty low budget. So they used just about anybody that they could get.
Yeah. I would too.
Yeah,
at that case, but they made like a classic even off that low budget, exactly. So it doesn't even matter. right? We're only going in on it because it's a podcast and it's just like us bullshitting. But so then the scene of him and that other guy, I think his name was Tom.
Yeah, it's Tom.
Tim. Okay, Tom. Uh, how are we supposed to know what was going on? And Barbara was doing more than just screaming upstairs. She was talking about her brother and whatnot. She gets knocked out while Ben goes back to hammering nails against the wall, and they go, "How are we supposed to know?" I don't know, man. I have a note here that just say white people suck. It's like
It's
that's the context.
it's true because and what I love about this part is that Ben immediately calls him out on his bullshit for not helping. He starts picking all through his excuses of like, oh well, we didn't know, we couldn't really hear, to oh well, it sounded like the whole house was being torn apart. He's like, all right, you need to get your story straight when you're coming at me, because first off you said you couldn't hear anything, now you're saying you could hear everything. Like, you're just
Yeah,
gonna stay down there and not even help out at all?
yeah. This man was deflecting everything, and like Ben was just going at him too. At some point, they started just arguing about wood. Like Ben is the savior of this movie. I think the guy's name is Mr. Cooper. I don't remember his like first actual name, but the guy that looks like the Anchorman dude.
They
I did say he sort of kind of makes sense with the whole cellar argument. Like, here is just one door, one opening, but at the same time there is no exits, like Ben is saying.
yeah,
And the
that's
more
a
they
death
argued, and the more he said like, oh, there'll be like 20, 30, 100. And he's like, well, if 20, 30, 100, it doesn't matter if we're like up here or in the cellar at that point.
trap. Right, they're
Which,
gonna
like,
come in no matter what. If it gets to that point, then we're all dead. Like, what the hell are we gonna even do?
I made a note. Old movies are funny because they explicitly tell you what to think. Nothing is left to interpretation. um, we did talk about some stuff we interpreted, but back in the day, it's hard to say people were interpreting it that way, especially thinking of like the social justice climate of that time.
Mm-hmm.
It is funny that they will go the extra mile to tell you what does this mean and whatever. I could think of like Psycho that also does this, but we'll get to that at a different time. I feel it's such
No,
a
yeah.
classic movie.
Yeah, we definitely have to hit some of the Hitchcock classics for sure.
There's a shot outside. The zombies are multiplying. They're becoming a lot of them now. Then there's like a shot of a zombie kind of going at Ben, which is like really good because Ben grabs the gun, shoots the zombies. And this is kind of like sets up the whole trope that shooting a zombie doesn't necessarily kill it.
That zombie has such a like, so it stumbles back after being shot, and then it gives like a sad, pathetic face up towards the camera.
The zombies do look they look terrifying, but at the same time they do look very sad in this movie. It might be just the choice to use black and white because I think at the time of this movie there was color.
Going back to the makeup, Tom grabs a knife, and then you see this hand come up, and he just starts like hacking at the hand, and you see the fingers falling off. I thought that was pretty cool, especially for back in the day. Like, you're seeing these digits and stuff getting mutilated. People were probably like, "Oh shit!" Like, this is getting intense.
Damn, I'm upset because I think I missed that.
Oh,
That seems like a good thing. I watched it twice just recently.
oh, sorry, I don't mean to
Mhm.
cut back in. The one thing I always found funny, especially during Halloween time watching this as a kid, like the guns sounded like an air rifle, like a little psst, shooting at the zombies. And I was like,
Yeah, they do.
oh, okay.
Well, Mr. Cooper, I think that's what I said his name was.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is Mr. Cooper. He's causing so much strain. Like, he is the one that is the source of all the issues around everybody there. I just made a note there, and like, just from what we said before, he's the only one that causes any conflict that happens within the group, which is pretty fitting when we're thinking about his role and how this movie was made in the 60s. Yet stuff like this is still happening. Some, like, there's an aggressor, a person of power or with power, or like social stance against somebody else, using that power to cause problems and say, Why are you fighting back? Why are you questioning my authority?
Right? He's such a creep because, like, when he's standing up there and Ben's fighting, like, I'm the boss up here, you can go down there. Mr. Cooper turns to Barbara and he's like, well, she's coming downstairs with us. Ben's like, hell no. She's staying here. Don't you ever touch her. That's just fucking weird of him to be like, I'm gonna take the woman downstairs with me.
Yeah, he's taking that leadership role and he's just assuming it on himself and not in a way where I'm gonna make a stance and kind of lead us. He's just, you're doing what I say. That's two different things. Taking leadership and leading people and just telling people what to do. He's doing the latter. Mr. Cooper continues to antagonize everybody while he goes back downstairs and crosses his arms and is upset.
When he does go back downstairs, you see the shot of his wife Helen and their daughter. I cannot remember her name. I don't know if they say it, but even she's upset with him. She's like, so why are we staying down here? And then he brings up the fact that there's a radio upstairs and that there's people up there, and then she starts calling him out for being a coward and an idiot for trying to trap themselves down below.
Like, even just little things, like she tells her husband, like, something along the lines is, I told you there was somebody up there. And he's just like, oh, I don't know. It's just interesting. And then he decides to make a trade. Like, what? Like, we're gonna trade people with the main floor and the cellar. Like, I don't really understand what grounds he has to do this. Especially since it seems like Judy just wants to. Judy is Tim's wife, by the way. She doesn't really exist in this movie. Her and Tim kind of serve one role. We'll talk about that role later on. But yeah, Judy is switched with, I think, Barbara?
No. She switched with Helen. So Judy goes
Oh,
downstairs to watch over their daughter, while Helen comes up, meets the new people, and then at this point they say that they found a TV. Tom says that they found a TV. So they come up to watch the TV and hear the radio reports that are going on.
I have a note here that says, man, no one likes Barbara. I think it's because people were trying to talk to her and she just has no emotion and like does not want to entertain anybody else's suffering.
Right? She just like completely shuts down. You have all these people going through it and she's like, my life is terrible right now. Like, I know she's playing the part of the traumatic events and the stress that can happen very well, but it gets to the point where everybody's already past that and it's a matter of survival at that point. She's not even fighting for her own survival, so she's the worthless one in the group.
Yeah, but the thing is, a lot of people treat Barbara with like respect and like care and don't want to like push her over, and they're like, "Oh, her brother died," right? Especially like even Mr. Cooper, he comes up and he like does not show that same energy with her that he's been showing literally everybody else in the house.
I think I'm gonna have to disagree with you just a little bit, just because when they do get the TV going on again, he basically, like you said, he's commanding. He points at her and he says, now you better watch this and you better pay attention to what's going on. Like, what? What the hell is that? Like, everybody's
Damn, I must have missed that too.
Yeah, it was a pretty weird scene. I was like, this dude's an asshole.
Yeah, because when I wrote this note, I remember it was like in context of him going back to the main floor. His wife or Judy tells him, oh, her brother died. Like, after having a yelling match with everybody in the house, he just kind of like lets her go.
Yeah.
Like everybody else isn't going through something like they are with their daughter and like the young couple with whatever. TV basically does the coronavirus thing, is what I say, and that's probably when he says, you better pay attention.
Yeah.
I think this is the time when I said I like timed it because this was like 8 minutes, 5 to 8 minutes or so.
Oh, damn.
Of just TV and like weird shots of everything. But this is important information is laid out here. Like, this is where it's revealed that people who have died are coming back into life. So it's that whole rule to a zombie, right?
Yeah. And then did you catch that part where it's like the military, the scientists, and the government, they're just coming out of their meeting, and the TV report says that a Venus probe that was destroyed by NASA was carrying high radiation, and they're saying that might be the cause of everything that's going on.
Yeah, I saw that.
Oh.
I saw the whole like radiation thing. This is when I wrote, "No one knows anything on the TV.
No.
No one confirms, no one denies, no one does anything. There's just questions being asked. It could be assumed that things happen." Yeah, overall, it's just like some weird tidbits of information, and everyone just saying, "No, yep, I don't know." The safe zone that they want to get to is 17 miles away, which isn't too bad. They could definitely make it. So that they suggest that they should like figure out they have a car, they just need to get it running. But before that, some other things happen. This is where Tim and Judy kind of talk about how they got there, or
Tom.
maybe just Tim.
Tom.
Mm.
Sorry. I know I keep saying Tim too.
Oh, Tom.
Yeah. No, you're good.
Tom and Judy, they found out about this, and this is like where I'm really like, damn, this movie has its age, because like life is not like this anymore.
Oh, you're talking about the
Tom,
whole like where's that smile scene? Is that what you're talking about?
we're gonna get to that
Oh,
too.
okay.
Tom talks about how they know about this house because they go swimming in, I guess, a lake near the house, and they would always just see the house on their way to swim. And then I don't know how they found out about the zombies. I forgot. I didn't get write down that part of the story. But once they found out about the zombies, they went to that house and just like found Mr. Cooper there or whatever.
I feel terrible for these the owners of the house because everybody immediately saw their place and was like, "I'm gonna just take that over."
Luckily, they were already dead,
Oh,
or
yeah.
maybe even killed, by them. Who knows? This guy finds jars of fruit and a labeled key for the gas pump. Even labeling keys is something that feels foreign to me. If you label your keys, you're probably more organized than I am.
Probably too organized at that point.
Yeah. Okay, this is the scene that I was talking about. This is the other part of the scene. So now Tom's having this conversation since he found the keys to the gas pump. Gas pump's outside. They have a car outside. So now they have to develop this whole plan where Tom is going to go out there, pump gas into the car, and now everybody's going to go to freedom, but now he has to have a conversation with Judy. Conversation starts with Tom telling Judy to stop smiling at him. He's just like, "Why are you smiling? Why are you always smiling at me?" And then they start talking. They start talking about how she's scared, but he needs to do it. And she's like, "Why can't anybody else do it?" Which I think Mr. Anderson should have done it. No one would have been sad if he died, right?
Mr. Anderson.
Mr. Mr. Cooper,
There,
Mr. Whoever.
No, I was getting very Matrix feels from that.
Yeah, we send Mr. Anderson out. That would be funny. I don't know where that came from. Anyways, eventually they're like talking. She brings up, what if this like place, this safe haven, isn't real? Like, what if it's not true? And then Tom says, "The television said this is the right thing to do."
Of
And-
course, believing everything you see.
And it just like puts perspective on like, all right, I see why older people love to tell younger people what you see in the media isn't true when we already fucking know. They're just gullible because that was supposed to be a youth in the movie as well.
Yeah,
Uh,
it definitely put
And-
the timestamp on what was happening in everybody's minds at that time.
yeah, which is interesting. It's cool. I wrote, for real though, if anyone, it should have been Mr. Cooper. It should be Mr. Cooper unlocking the pump.
Yeah,
He wouldn't be missed in all caps.
I don't mean to backtrack a little bit, but Helen does say something when she's arguing with Harry downstairs in the cellar. She says something along the lines of like, "Oh, if we weren't happy in life, what's gonna happen in death?"
Yeah,
It's
she
clearly
definitely
not-
alludes to they have like marital problems.
Yeah.
in the scene when they're in the cellar. So after Tom says this whole thing, and remember, this conversation starts with him telling her to not smile, basically. He then asks her to smile. He's like, "Hey, Judy, where's that old smile?" Like, well, you just told her she shouldn't be smiling. Right? This whole conversation happened because you got annoyed with her smile. Everybody in this movie just flips and flops and whatever, except my boy Ben.
Yeah,
He holds true to
yeah, he
his
does.
beliefs and what he says.
So, Mr. Cooper's upstairs. He's tossing out Molotov cocktails at the zombies because fire keeps him away. Tom goes running out. Ben goes running out. And in the midst of all this confusion, Judy somehow slips out too and follows Tom and Ben, and they get into the truck and they go over to the pump. And the stupidest thing happens. Tom is unable to lock the pump. Ben shoots it off. Tom immediately grabs the hose and sprays the whole truck in gasoline, which catches fire with a nearby torch. I mean, he just immediately grabs it and just like douses the whole side of the truck on fire.
There's just a lot of stupid things that kind of happen here. So Ben's track record of just leaving torches and burning shit around dried grass that could catch everything on fire along with the house. This is the one time it actually plays into effect because the torch isn't somewhere where it will be safe from fire. He puts it literally on the ground. He just says, all right, here it goes. And it's not like he pushed the torch towards it. It's just that he was just spraying it everywhere. Catches fire while I know why Judy's in it. Judy was already in it. But I don't know how Tom got involved.
And getting in the truck. So he hopped in because he's like, oh, I gotta get the fire away from the gas pump. So he basically takes the truck, drives it off, and he jumps out when they get far enough. Of course, Judy's jacket gets caught in the truck, or she yells back to Tom for help. Tom goes back and gets inside to try and help her, and then we see this flash, and we immediately see Ben's face. And then it cuts back, and the truck's completely on fire.
Yeah, it cuts to Ben's face. Truck's on fire. They've blown up. They're gone. There's a cut to the zombies, and now the zombies are like all in their underwear and PJs, which is a funny choice.
So
especially back then. Mm-hmm.
The naked zombie that's like that you first see like a little earlier to this. Did you notice that she's got like a body bag tag basically on her wrist?
No.
So this kind of solidifies the whole idea that those that recently died are coming back. So she may have just been sitting at some morgue and then just came back to life. So I thought that was interesting.
Interesting.
It wasn't just some.
They do mention on the TV that it would take just minutes. Here I am saying it. They said on the TV.
Believe the media.
So my boy Ben runs back with his torch, fending off the zombies to make it back. Mr. Cooper decides that, hey, you know what would be really cool if I didn't help my dude out.
No,
so
if
he
I
just kind of watches him.
If I locked him outside of the house and didn't help him, that was the fucked up part. Because Ben comes back and he's fighting his way through this mob, and he gets to the door and he's like, Harry, open up the door, and then you see the scenes of Mr. Cooper just like cowering in front of the cellar door, like the piece of shit that he is.
Yeah, and I think he ends up opening it, right?
Yeah,
he ends up opening it. Yeah.
He kicks it down, and this is my favorite scene for sure, like
mine
hands
as
down.
Well.
Is just that cut between the two of them. The look on Ben's face that he gives to Harry as he sees him cowering at the cellar door. He's like, fuck you. Like, that was the last straw. You're done.
Yeah, I wrote, I've been waiting for this moment, and then Ben starts beating up Mr.
Yes, Cooper. Yes. It's a very powerful scene. You got this man just going around beating the white man down.
Everything about this scene is great. If you watch one scene, just watch this one. So we then get a cut back to the car, which isn't on fire anymore. It's questionable. But Judy and Tom are being eaten alive, and this scene is actually horrifying. This was like hard to watch. I know it was just like chicken bones and whatever they found to eat, but like the cuts and like the makeup and everything just looked so like real.
Yeah.
It looked harder to watch than like modern zombie like zombies eating the flesh. Ugh.
No, yeah, definitely.
Stomach turning. I just have a note here. Barbara is stupid. I don't know what Barbara did, but she just did usual Barbara stuff. You already know, but this far in the movie,
I think she's just
mhm.
sitting on the couch still, like while everything's going on.
Yeah, that sounds about right. Then I put more TV. This must have been another long TV sequence where they talked about stuff. They start calling the zombies ghouls.
So this TV scene actually scared me more than like, well, because it literally was showing lynch mobs gaining traction and hunting down zombies, and it was like being run by the police. Chief McClellan, I think was his name, was the sheriff who was in charge of this lynch mob.
Yeah,
So,
I remember that. I don't have like stuff written down about this, but this is like important later on, right?
yeah.
Okay. Is there more about the TV sequence you want to talk about?
So the chief does give out some important information, but we've already kind of seen this played out in the events that befell our characters, where he says to the reporter, like, if you're surrounded, they're pretty easy to kill. If you got a gun, just shoot them in the head. If not, grab a torch or like a blunt object, beat them or burn them. Like, they go up pretty easy. So he's, again, solidifying the rules.
I remember Ben also says, "Hey, we're doing a pretty good job," because he just figured it out pretty easily without everybody else's help. So zombies are pounding at the door. There's a shot of everybody looking at each other, which I think was pretty cool. Since I wrote it down, I don't see why I would like laugh at that. Mr. Cooper gets the gun and loses his shit, and I say, "What was the purpose? Why?" And then in response, Ben takes the gun from Cooper and shoots him.
Yes, yes.
Fucking incredible. 10 out of 10.
Immediately, like, no dialogue, no nothing. Like, this was an unforgivable sin for him to turn on Ben, and he immediately takes action. He's like, no, you're fucking dying today.
Yeah, I like that they didn't go the extra inch and made Mr. Cooper even, like, more horrible of a person by making him commit something, but having Ben triumph over that is really good. Is, like, a good choice.
And then as Harry is bleeding out, or Mr. Cooper's bleeding out, he stumbles down to the cellar, takes one last look at his daughter, and then dies.
Yeah. I said LMAO, Lamau, you didn't make it to your daughter.
XD Lamau.
XD Lamau. The next thing I have is Barbara just kind of watches Helen get grabbed by zombies.
Yeah. She sits there for like a cool, like, I want to say 2 minutes or so, just watching Helen, like, try to fight off all these arms and everything coming through the windows. But this is where she, like, sees that she needs to do something to help, and she kind of, like, snaps out of it momentarily. And she does rush over to the windows and helps pull Helen away.
I can't help but notice that this whole thing served two purposes. One for Helen, for something to happen to Helen immediately after this, and one for Barbara, because as soon as Barbara gets Helen away, for no reason, she gets grabbed by the zombies. And then she sees her brother in the sea of zombies, because she gets grabbed by the zombies before. So that's what I'm saying, like, what was even... So this was just serving the purpose of her seeing her brother. Then she starts holding on to her brother because she wants comfort, she wants to feel safe, and whatever, even though she's being what looks like eaten alive.
He immediately, like, grabs her and then pulls her into the horde that's right outside.
This is a great scene, mostly because Barbara is not wasting the screen time any longer.
It's the end of her. We don't need to talk about her
anymore. And I guess this does. I think a lot of zombie movies do that whole, like, I lost a family member and now they've turned and I don't know how to react. Way better, like Train to Busan or like the other.
Don't bring that one movies up. That one is so sad.
Like those are like really well
yes,
done. Like Barbara just kind of like existed in a way that didn't make sense to me.
It set up the trope for later on.
Yeah,
for,
yeah.
Like, people to nail
if there's
down.
something I do enjoy about her character and stuff, it's like the undertones of, you know, sexual assaults and the future for what movies should be doing, right?
Yeah.
Then I think this is when Helen starts going downstairs to the cellar.
Yeah, she rushes down there to basically comfort her daughter, and then we get this awesome shot of her daughter, and she did it quick as hell. There's like 3/4 of Mr. Cooper's arm gone because the daughter's just eating away at him.
Yeah.
And then Helen runs down there and she's like, "Oh shit."
That shot of the daughter eating her dad and just the daughter in general are some of the best shots in like horror. I feel like those are so well done. They look so menacing and cool and like dope.
And that's the thing. I don't
You
think
know.
back in the day, like I don't think a lot of people knew that they were gonna include children like attacking and physically like tearing apart people. So I could see this scene as being one that was cemented into people's minds of like, oh my god, this child literally is killing her parents. Although
Yeah.
the screams the screams of the mother when the daughter is gouging into her chest with like a, what was it, like a shovel, like a little
Yeah. It's a
gardening
shovel.
shovel.
Yeah. She gets a shovel. She starts. She kind of lets it happen too, because I think
Yeah,
she can't imagine like what she would do
against
like
her daughter.
against her daughter or
Yeah.
what, you know. So she kind of allows it to happen. The scene is actually very disturbing to watch because the daughter is just like stabbing her repeatedly with this like garden shovel. This shit hits.
It's very
This whole ending to the movie is great, but yeah,
it's
go.
very terrifying imagery. Like I said, the screams that were used for it are pretty funny. Like I couldn't help but like pull back from it. Like, but it's super cool to see her like the lighting of that whole thing on like the mother's face, and just seeing like the hands being plunged down.
When movies are black and white, they just kill it with the lighting.
Yeah.
Peter Capaldi is back. He's just chilling around the house. I don't really think he does much, but he's there just to kind of throw back, I guess.
They're like, oh, that's the OG.
Ben is like fighting off the zombies. The child zombie walks up behind him and he just kind of throws her away from him, which is great. Then he kind of like goes back into the cellar where he didn't want to end up, but he kind of is forced to.
Yeah, because everybody fucked it up for him.
Yeah, what I wanted to notice was the music here was really fucking good. Like, it was so tense and so good, and everything was done so slowly. It all built up to this moment, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's just Ben. These zombies are inside the house. They're all coming after him. He's locked in the basement, or in the cellar. He sees both Helen and Mr. Cooper turned because of their daughter. So he shoots both of them in the head, which was just dark, you know?
He immediately, like, as soon as he saw Mr. Cooper trying to rise up, he put 3 shots into him. He's like, fuck you, you're staying down. And then he turns to Helen. He's like, all right, I gotta put you out too.
That was a great scene also. It was very powerful. It cuts to daytime, and now the zombies have kind of like made their way out of the house.
Yeah, they kind of like dispersed. I don't think there was one inside the house. They were all outside, definitely.
And then we get shots of a helicopter and these guys who are honestly more scary than the zombies. They're all wearing basically racist uniforms going out to lynch the zombies and
No,
whatnot.
yeah, like I said,
Rangers.
it's the same lynch mob that was shown on the TV, with the
Yeah.
Chief McClellan, who they're trying to make their way towards Willard, which is where our characters were trying to get to. They came across the farmhouse.
What's disturbing about this scene is like these guys are just out for a hunt where they kind of enjoy what they're doing, just putting things out of their misery.
Right.
It's really hard to watch this context because like I can imagine a lot of people in the '60s were like cheering like yeah they're gonna save them, but in today's social climate, nah, this is not what it looks like is happening.
The credits out of the entire movie are the scariest thing.
There's like a scene where they start talking about coffee and like some other shit like
Oh,
this is what I'm
yes,
talking about. Like
yes, yes.
they're starting to like just fill this dead air, and I do understand that they're like trying to make it seem like everything's normal, that these guys are here and whatever. Like there is important information. Like there is important information here, obviously, but some of it's just not necessary. And then the hardest scene to watch in the whole movie happens, the ending, where Ben, who's obviously going to be freaked out, he's been in this house trapped by zombies all day. So he's pointing a gun kind of out. It's like a shadow kind of going over him, but you can clearly tell he has a gun. And these guys, this lynch mob, they just without question say, "Oh, there's something moving in the house. Shoot it."
Right?
And
They don't
they
even.
shoot him in the head, and that's credits.
Their goal was not to look for survivors. It was go out, hunt, kill. That's it. And immediately after we see the character that we were rooting for, the character that was trying to do nothing but survive, but had all these obstacles in his way, gunned down, the sheriff immediately turns and says, "All right, that's another one for the fire."
Which is like very telling of like our current presidency and like administration just putting band-aids on things, which they're really not doing. Their band-aids are just a couple of tweets and appealing to a more conservative crowd, right? Like, oh, we just took care of that, we're not going to even address it, so it's done, we finished it, we cleared it, right? No, like, there was no problem solved, you just got rid of it.
Yeah, exactly. And then this next part is basically stills, and you're just hearing the audio playing over, but you see the mob going inside the house with hooks in their hands, and they literally hook Ben, drag his body out, and then place him onto the fire. This is not a good ending in any context of the form. This is the worst possible outcome, and I mean, it's shit that we're seeing on TV nowadays.
Yeah, it's really hard to watch because these are the people that are supposed to be serving the people, the government, and they're obviously not for the people if they're willing to do this and not even address problems. They're just gonna do whatever it takes to make themselves look good and call it a day. What was really hard about like just this whole ending, it's like hard to talk about because I don't know if George A. Romero himself felt this way when he made these characters, the lynch mob specifically, since I think the actor that played Ben suggested this to happen. Was that right or no?
I know the whole thing about Dwayne Jones, his part was not written to be played by a black man. What happened was he was literally the best actor to come out for the audition, and he killed it. So Romero saw him and was like, "No, that's the man. That's the person that I want for this." And even then, I heard a little bit that like during the writing process, they tried to dumb him down. They didn't want him educated. They wanted him just kind of like stumbling about whatever. But he turned and said, "No, like I'm gonna portray this character this way. He is going to be resourceful. He is going to be insightful, and he is going to be educated, and he's going to fight for his survival." And George Romero was like, "All right, let's do it."
That's actually great. That's actually great to hear too, because a lot of directors probably at that time would have been like, "All right, you're out," and then hired a white guy.
Yeah, exactly. I know might have said like he didn't intend to make this like a social satire, but I think he, in a sense, did. But it wasn't originally intended to be a black man playing this role. He just was that great of an actor, and all of his dialogue and all of his actions hold up way better than any of the other cast members in this movie.
Yeah, and I can see that because he was just played to be like a regular character, like a smart one at that,
Yeah.
honestly. So it just turned out well. But yeah, that's kind of the movie. That ending is like really harsh to get through. A lot kind of happens throughout it. I do have my weird feelings towards this movie because I do know everybody else that was involved with this was white. So I don't know how they themselves viewed these characters, right? Like the lynch mob, the other
Oh, yeah,
ones. And and like I can't put myself in the shoes of a white person watching this in the 60s being like, "Oh, that was scary because of the zombies," or "That was scary because of man."
Yeah, there's plenty of times in the little farmhouse where it looks like Barbara is more terrified to see that this black man is taking charge of what's going on more than the zombies that are literally trying to kill her outside of the house.
Yeah, it's definitely a strange thing to kind of talk about, but what's cool about media, we can just take it how we want to see it,
Yeah.
and hopefully it is a pro people of color movie where a black man takes a leading role and leads a bunch of white people, and they don't believe him, so they die, and then white people are the reason why he ends up meeting his fate, right?
Yeah.
But overall, I think this movie's pretty great. It does fall short with some of the dialogue for me. This rewatch, I definitely did enjoy it more than the first time I watched it, from what I remember.
In the context of what's happening right now, this is a very terrifying film, and Dwayne Jones's dialogue, Ben's dialogue, holds up even truer than everybody else's. Like, watching this film, you just are completely enthralled with his performance, and then you get everybody else kind of just like, I don't know, they just get muffled in the background of this zombie apocalypse, but he truly stands out as this character of like fighting for what's right, fighting to just survive in the world that's against you.
Yeah, there's a lot that I respect about this movie. There's a lot that I'm still questionable about. Like, even watching this 2 more times this past weekend, this is a hard movie. Like, I don't want to diss it because I do know it was made in the 60s, but at the same time, I'm judging it on me right now and how much I enjoy it right now. But this is like a more than solid blueprint for the zombie movies. A lot of blueprints for these movies start off not so great, but then they get like much better iterations. Are there better iterations than Night of the Living Dead? A lot of people would agree, but I think a lot of people would also disagree, which is cool. It's a great movie. It inspires and sparks a lot of discussion. We're talking for maybe as long as the fucking movie was, right? Almost as long as the movie was. There's clearly a lot to say. I know a lot of it was us just kind of joking at it and like doing this, but like some of the misses for me were like Barbara. If we wanted to really talk about those issues of like assault, this, and that, I think it could have been made way, way, way stronger.
Yeah.
But yeah, man.
Like you said multiple times, the score in this was done very well. It sets up the mood. It's very tense. It's very like terror is right around the corner. And then the makeup, from seeing the corpse at the top to all the zombies around, and then the hand getting mutilated, it's done very well.
It's just a cool movie. I would recommend anybody that's never seen it just to watch the whole trilogy. The whole trilogy is worth watching. This is like a great start to it, and especially if you're a fan of zombie movies, you should be watching the Blueprint, right? The zombie movies really were the next to kind of like Frankenstein, right? Humans are worse than the monster.
Yeah. You gotta watch out what the living's gonna do to you. The livings can fuck you up worse. I would close this out by saying the zombie genre has a lot to give to society nowadays. That also being said, it needs to pay more respect to where it came from. It came from a racially charged place, and George Romero was able to flip the script a bit by having Ben be this very strong character. But that being said, it is very good to watch the blueprint and then continue forward educating ourselves and saying, how can we make the horror community better? How can we relate to these people who are being oppressed and pushed down around us? And essentially be better than Mr. Cooper. Who
like how can we avoid committing these microaggressions? How can we avoid undermining somebody else just because of their background and who they are? Right?
Yeah, definitely.
Like, we shouldn't be scared like Barbara is of somebody just because of what they might look like. And I think that's a kind of good spot to end it there. Again, we're happy that you guys came out to are listening to this podcast. We did it for nearly the amount of time the movie was. You could have watched the movie if you already didn't. But maybe give it a rewatch if you already seen it and this piqued your interest. This is mostly for Angel and myself.
Yeah, it's cool to hear your thoughts on the movie because we didn't want to talk about it. I know we had the chance to, but we didn't want to talk about it until we started recording this podcast. So it's cool to see your thoughts on it and kind of carry that conversation on. So this it's awesome.
Yeah, so we went through this whole movie without even contacting each other or telling each other anything about the movie. We just kind of like took our own notes, watched it separately, then went into it. So that was the whole process. It was cool. It was fun. Recommend anybody else if they're trying to keep in contact with a friend and you guys like media a lot to do the same. That was Night of the Living Dead. I do want to reiterate we are going to be supporting and posting things about Black Lives Matter and places you can donate, places you can sign petitions, whatever you can under the ats on Twitter and Instagram, Happy Haunts Podcast. That is Happy Haunts Podcast. And hopefully we will see you guys next time. And we have not what we actually did decide on the movie. What was the movie, Angel?
It's gonna be Hereditary. We're gonna be
Yeah.
watching Hereditary, and I cannot wait for this because this fucked me up in the theaters, and I've been dying to talk to you about it. Actually,
Yeah, so we're gonna be doing an older movie, a newer movie, then maybe sprinkle some video games or other things in between. So Hereditary is gonna be our next one. Hereditary has just got a lot going on in it.
if you thought this one had a lot to tackle, Hereditary is gonna be a complete unboxing of a mindfuck of a movie. So
Yeah, so stay tuned for that. We'll see you guys next time. Enjoy your evening.